Right, in this video, I'm just going to show you how I made this render right here. So I've just recorded myself creating the whole thing, and you just get to see me make this. A big part of this one was making these, I don't really know what these are, but these big floating rock pillar formation things. So I used some sculpting to make those. I'll show you how I did that in a second, but yeah, basically we're just going to go through sculpting one of those, using it to create the rest of the environment, texturing, how to get edge wear like this, and the entire environment creation actually in this video. A lot of the techniques that I used in sculpting this rock stuff here, it came from this video here by this guy, Weighted Normal. So he just made this video called Making a Rock in Blender. I used pretty much the exact settings that he talks about in this video. I just applied it to a different shape. So that's where I got that from. A lot of the inspiration for this render came from actually Mid-Journey. I was just messing around with it, and I got this right here. I don't really know what this is, but it looks cool. And so that's where the idea for like some, I think I had another one in here too, but these big like flat kind of rock formations on either side. That's where I got the idea for that, and that's just kind of what I was going off of. I know it didn't turn out looking very much like this at all, but it's okay. You know, it just led to something different, which I think turned out fine. So yeah, if you want to see me make this, just keep watching. That's what the rest of this video is. I think what I want to start with is a cube. So I want the shape of this. I'm gonna just make one of them to start off, like one of these big chunks over here, and I could probably get away with duplicating it a few times and just adding some minor variation to switch it up. But yeah, I'm gonna start with that, and we'll just kind of bring this into sculpting and then just make it a bit more rock-like, and then take that and then bring it back in here and then make a scene out of it. So I don't want to spend too long sculpting, but I will just quickly run through a couple of things. Before I sculpt, I'm actually going to do this using the bisect tool. It's underneath the knife. If you just press and hold on the knife tool in here, this is the toolbar, press T to open and close it in edit mode, and then just go to the bisect thing right here. The way this works is you have to have the entire mesh selected for this to work, and then you just click and drag, and you can see it's just kind of bringing up some points here. If you click on clear outer and then also fill, let me just try that again. Let me check those before I do this, and then yeah, there we go, then do it, and then you can just kind of move it around with this. That's how you can get some interesting, it's basically, you can do this with booleans too, but this is a faster way that I've found, again, from that video I just showed of how to do this kind of thing. And this will just give a good starting point for the sculpting workflow I'll show in a second. Okay, that should be fine to start off with. Now let's apply the scale, and then jump into the sculpting workspace here. And then the settings he was using that worked really well is you just use the scrape brush, turn on dynamic topology, and then there's a few settings you got to change in here to make this just work really well. First of all, strength should be up decently high, and then there was this weird setting in here. So the first thing to change is switch this from smooth over to constant, and that will just give you a really harsh fall off. So the brush will just basically be, you'll see in a second, but it won't be like a smooth brush. It'll just be a very hard, constant fall off. And then the other thing to change is there's this one option here, this right here. If you check original normal, that will just basically make it, I think, so that when you're sculpting on, say you start on a flat surface, wherever you move throughout the mesh, it'll stay aligned with the original surface that you had it lined up with. So for example, if I just kind of do something here, if I start at this angle, it kind of just continues from the angle I started with. For some reason, when you check this setting here, it just makes it so much easier to just destroy the mesh and create a very rocky texture. So you can see if I turn that on, it just cuts through a lot deeper than if you don't have that on. So that's going to make it a lot easier to make this rocky kind of shape. The other thing too is I'm going to turn down the dynamic topology, what's it called? The detail size. I'll turn that down to like 5 maybe. So basically half of what it was before, and that will be a good amount of detail, I think. Could even go lower. I could even go like 2 or 3 if you want to go really in detail, but it starts to lag a little bit, so I'm going to keep it on like 5. So yeah, I'm going to keep doing this. I could fast forward this section because we don't really need to see this, but I'm just going to use only this brush, nothing else. I just keep going throughout here and just kind of make some more imperfections and just end up with something interesting.
Sometimes I get lost in daydreams.
Okay, I've got this. I don't know if this is the best shape ever, but I think I can make it work in the context I'm going to use it in. So here's what I want to do now is start texturing this. Just very, very basic texture. So I'll just hit new. I'm going to grab a texture from Quixel. You could also just use, I was testing this out with free rock ones from Ambient CG yesterday. You could totally use those. But here's the setup I want to do. You can just take any rock texture you want, something jagged that's already has a lot of detail in it. It's going to be good. Just wait for this to load, and then we'll bring one in. So I'll just search for rock in here, go to services, and just find some kind of thing that looks like a cliffside. Maybe this kind of thing, or like, actually this is kind of more like what I was thinking. Let's try that. And see if that gives us a better result. So this has more smooth surfaces on it, and it's less, I don't know, jagged. Which I know I said I wanted a jagged one, but I think that was the wrong choice. So just wait till that shows up in here. There we go. Come on. And again, just fix the texture because Quixel Bridge is incapable of exporting a texture correctly for some reason. So there we go. Maybe let's rotate it like a little bit sideways, just to switch it up a little bit. And that, I think, is going to be a better option than the other one I was using. Okay, let's add some edge wear so it's just a bit more fun. And you can do that with a ambient occlusion node. So I was messing with this yesterday, and I think this is the best way to do it for using inside Blender. If you're going to export this as a game asset or export it to another software, this is not a good idea because we're going to be using just nodes to actually add this detail. But for just using inside Blender, this will work really well. So I'm going to take an ambient occlusion node and multiply that into the color. So normally ambient occlusion is for like adding a natural kind of shadow into small crevices it's kind of like if you just Google the word ambient occlusion, you'll see what it's doing. But I want to use it kind of the inverse of that to add a brighter edge to the outside corners, if that makes sense. And here's how you do that. So I'm going to use a color ramp, drop that right here, and we can just preview that. I'm just pressing Control Shift and then clicking on a node to preview it. And I think you need to have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled to be able to do that. So if I do this, if I actually flip the color ramp around and invert it and just bring it up like this, and if I check only local and also check this box here inside, that will actually make it so that it highlights the edges only. So we're inverting the color ramp and checking these two boxes, inside and only local. And then if you adjust the distance down, now we can control exactly where this comes in. So this is really useful for adding this kind of stuff. And if I just take the distance way down and then crank the color ramp a little bit more like this, I think that's a good starting point. And then I want to multiply that in. You can actually switch this to overlay, and then I don't necessarily want this texture to be that dark. Right now it's making it very, very dark and just leaving the edge wear like the color it was before. But I'd rather have it so that it leaves everything else the color it was before and then just makes the edges brighter. The way you can do that is just by changing the colors of the color ramp. So if I make the black value, instead of being fully black, if I just make it like 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, something like that, and then make the white one, you can actually take the value here and turn it up to past 1, and that will just make it brighter than 1. And so that's kind of an interesting result that you can get from that. And then you can adjust how strong that effect here is with the mix factor. So maybe multiply is a better option, but I think overlay does also look cool. And I might make this a little bit darker. So that's kind of an interesting way to add a bit more detail in here. And I could take this down to maybe 0.03. I think is a good amount. And if it's too clean here, you could actually mix in a noise texture there if you want to. I don't think I need to do that here, but yeah, that's looking much better. So it's a bit more natural, feels a bit more worn and just better. So I'm gonna run with that. And let's maybe take metallic up, specular down. It's not the most realistic settings ever. In fact, if you want realism, don't do that. But I think it looks kind of cool doing that. The other thing I might do too is make it kind of damp. So I might take a color ramp into the roughness and just crunch this up a little bit like that until I start to see where it's coming in. And then just bring this handle back a little bit. So that's kind of a bit more interesting. And then adjust the other settings accordingly. I think that's a good starting point. This is a bit much here, but I think it's maybe fine. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, let's start setting up a scene with this. I'm just going to use this one a bunch of times. I don't need it to look exactly like my reference, but that is just going to give me a good starting point for some ideas. So I want this huge. Let's make a big landscape, and let's go to like 24 millimeters. Zoom this in so you can actually see what's going on. And yeah, so I want to just block this out. So the camera's going to be low to the ground, looking kind of upwards. This will just kind of be up here or out here like this. And then I want some light in the distance, I think. I'm going to increase the camera view distance to like 12,000 meters maybe. Increase this. And let's just make the light a bit bigger and maybe kind of blue or cyan like it was in the reference photo. Increase the strength a lot. And then, yeah. Maybe let's just put that rock material on here for now. I'm going to change that, but just so the floor isn't fully white. It's kind of bothering me. Let's throw in volumetrics because it definitely needs that. So display as bounds. New texture. Delete this. Volume scatter in 0.001. Scroll in and out to refresh that, and then just turn up the anisotropy. This might actually be, oh sorry, 0.001, not 0.1. So, yeah, I want, let's add a cube in here just for the scale of a person. So it's 2 meters tall, scale it down slightly so it's like just under 2 meters. It's kind of the height of a person right there. Just so I can get an idea of how big all this stuff actually is. And then, yeah, we can just throw it in this rock thing. It's not the greatest sculpting, but it's good enough, I think. Especially once I layer on other assets on top of this, like from Quixel, rocks and stuff. Or some of my photo scans even too. This light is way too close. Let's move that into the distance a bit more. And yeah, I just want to have these big towering kind of pillars all over the place. I might scale up the UV map on the normal map, or on the scale up the texture a little bit on here. And I could even duplicate this over itself and layer that on top of itself to add more detail. Maybe flip it upside down, like rotate it around this way. Just so that the, like on these areas where I need more detail, I can just kind of fake that a little bit. Like this. I'm just going to have that poking through a little bit like that. And these ones, maybe I can actually just make the texture a little bit smaller to match the size of the other ones. So that is a bit more consistent throughout here. And then I could do one big one in the middle if I wanted, that might be cool, but it might not need to be there. Could just do this by like duplicating this over itself a few times. Not really sure about that, but could be nice. Just have a really blocky shape here. And I need a sky back here. Let's do a moody, some kind of moody sky. And let's just pull this over this way. You can just get one of these from Unsplash. I'm just going to use one of the packs included in the course because these are just photos that I've taken and it's always fun to use. The Moody Skies pack. So I'm going to take one of these, just some cloudy kind of thing. It doesn't really matter which one, but like just some cloudy thing. Run that into the emission and the alpha. Apply scale. Just unwrap it so it lines up properly. Kind of copy the rotation of the camera. And then just kind of move that in place. Make sure the horizon is lining up here. And then just move it down like this. Now, that's a bit bad. So I need to maybe just mess with the color, like maybe just desaturate it a little bit, and then even mix in kind of a blue color. Let's take a mix color node, multiply in some of that like cyan kind of color a little bit if I can. Not too much where it's like annoying, but just a little bit. And it might be cool to not actually have this light at the bottom. It might be cool to just have it in the sky. Like maybe it might be nice to have what if I add a big area light up here? Like let's do light area and then just make this like really bright up here like this. That's too much. 23 million is way too much. Let's turn that down. Make the size like 50 meters and then just pull that way up like this. Maybe make it actually a little bit of that cyan color, but not too much. It's a little bit bright, so maybe let's make it like 1 million. Bring it back down a little. This sky is getting in the way, so I'm going to take that and then just go visibility, turn off shadow, and now I can move the area light around wherever I want and not worry about the sky getting in the way. That's kind of a cool lighting setup there. Might be nice too to have like coming from off to the side. Like what if it's like this? Let's desaturate it slightly and then make it just really bright, like 12 million. And then do something like this where it's just off to the side. Like that is pretty cool. I really like that actually. That's really interesting lighting where it's like pretty surreal, but kind of looks a little bit real. Yeah, let's do that. That's really sick. Now I could have these floating. It does look cool. I don't know if it makes that much sense, but it is actually really cool. What might be nice is having it floating, but then adding a lot of really small kind of like particles to supplement the to kind of make it feel like everything's kind of surreal and floating and like, yeah. Okay, we need smaller rocks. So I think I'm going to go to Quixel Bridge and take some... Let's actually search rock again. I'm just going to take some of these 3D rocks and use these and just kind of scatter them into a cluster of floating rocks and then use that to just add some more surreal detail around the scene. On the floor, I actually don't want the changes I do to this one to affect the other meshes with this texture on it. So the way to make this its own unique texture is you click this button at the top, this 7 right here, just tap that. And now any changes I make to this one, like if I just make it red, it won't affect the other, it won't affect the other textures in here. It's its own texture now, effectively. That actually looks kind of cool. I wonder if it would be cool to do like Star Wars kind of thing, where it's like red at the bottom. Let's take this, run it into the height, not holdout. This displacement height rather. Control 1, simple, adaptive, and then we want to turn on displacement on bump. Apply scale, and there we go. So now we've just turned on adaptive subdivision, we've enabled displacement, and now it's actually displacing the mesh, as you can see, which is perfect. So let's do this. Noise texture, mix that together with this, and then increase this to like 2 maybe. And then I also want some water at the bottom. Let's try and do that. So if you haven't seen my video on making water, this is just that. You basically just make the water shader once, save it as an object in your asset browser, and then just add that in anytime you need water. So I'm just gonna try that and just see if it makes sense. This sucks, so I need to fill in more detail here. So let's do that right now. Bring this in maybe, or just kind of duplicate it downwards, or I don't know. That's fine-ish there. This needs more detail here though. Maybe flip this on the Z. Yeah, that's fine. Cool, I like that. Now, maybe let's get some more rocks in on the ground. So let's take like, see how the ground is very rocky here. This is not what my picture is looking like at all, but it's okay. Kind of went in a different direction, but it's totally fine. Let's go to purchased in Quixel, purchased 3D assets, and just find nature and just go to like, let's get some of these rocks. I've used these in a lot of renders, but they're good ones. So I'm just gonna take these.
Sometimes I get lost in daydreams.
Okay, so I kind of just paused and then went to Midjourney, generated a bunch of these characters by just typing in like robed figure facing away from the camera, white background, that kind of thing. I'll show you the exact prompt in a second, but I just made a bunch of these, which are going to be super useful, I think. I don't know why I didn't think to do this a long time ago, but anyways, I took one of those, threw it onto a plane, just ran the color into the base color, and then the alpha, or the color as well into the alpha, and then just used a color ramp to invert the mask, so you can see what that's doing, just to make the white section of the image transparent and the darker sections of the image opaque, and then that just leaves you with the outline of the character, which is super handy. And I think we'll be okay. So yeah, let me just render this, and I'm gonna take a break, come back, and then edit this in Photoshop when I'm done, or when I'm done taking a break. Yeah. Okay, I saved the mist pass, but I don't think I'm gonna actually use it in here because I tried adding it in with just using it as a mask to brush in more cloudiness, but I don't think it's making it any better. So I'm gonna leave it off and delete that. And I'm just going to duplicate the background layer. Let's just go and do my usual process, which I've showed a bunch of times before. I have videos on exactly what I'm doing in here. There's one called how to add that special look to your renders. That's one of the videos that I've done mostly about Photoshop. It's mostly in the second half of the video, I think. There's also another video really old on my channel that I talk about editing stuff in Photoshop. That one's pretty old though, so I would suggest going with the newer one, or just watch me do it here and explain it a little bit less in depth than those other videos. So I'm just gonna throw on one of these blur layers, which is again kind of the same thing as using the glare node. And then what else should we do? Let's do some dodging and burning. So I'm gonna throw on a curves adjustment layer and make some areas darker and some areas brighter. Whoops, just tabbed into Blender. So yeah, I need some of these areas to be nice and dark. I could probably run the outside of the frame, maybe a little bit in the sky. And then, actually looks kind of cool having that there, but I don't really want to take that down too much in the middle, just because it's going to leave a weird dark spot. I think what I might do actually is this. New curves adjustment layer, bring it way down, and then double click it. That brings us to the blend if section right here. And then I just want to bring the shadows down basically. So I want to say, okay, anything below this point, we can make that darker. So I can just kind of spread the, if you hold Alt or just click Alt while you're clicking this, it breaks the handle up into two pieces. And then that way you can actually get a nice gradient fall off in where this is masking it in. So this is obviously an extreme effect I've just put in here, and I'm going to brush it in very lightly. So doing that, I can just invert the mask and then take a brush and just brush in exactly where I want that effect to show up. So basically we're just taking the dark parts, making them a little bit darker, and doing it in a very controlled way. So it's kind of like, you could probably just take the shadows down and it would do kind of the same thing. But I'm just doing it now instead of in the camera raw filter. And I think it doesn't need to be that strong, but that's going to be good right there, I think. I could try making some areas brighter. I don't think it really needs it, though. Like, maybe this section right here. I think that's all that needs. Maybe a little bit down here and over here. Maybe not even that much, though. Get rid of that. Just a little bit on the sides. So yeah, that's good there. Let me just save this as this edit. And I'm going to take one of these lens dirt things. If you just search Action VFX lens dirt, you'll find this exact pack. I'm going to drop one of these on here because I think it would be cool in this one. So let's throw that on there, throw it on screen, create a mask, and then just brush it in to wherever it seems right. I don't want this effect to be too strong, but just a little bit on like 5-10% I think is going to be cool. Not a huge difference, but I just like doing it. Okay, let's also get some particles. So I have the particles, like the dust particles pack. Let me just get that in here. I think I put a new one in here. Yeah, the 2.0. Here it is. Let's see. This one's kind of nice. Number 1 on the new section right here. Cool, drop that in, put it onto screen. And then we can also double click this layer and just kind of remove it from the darkest areas of the image. And then hit OK and just turn the opacity or the fill way down to like 20, 30, 40%. And that way it's barely noticeable here, but then as soon as I run it through the camera raw filter and sharpen it, that will be much more noticeable. So I'm going to keep it very subtle for now. And same thing with the lens dirt. I'm actually going to take that down a little bit as well. So we haven't done very much, although that is actually quite a significant difference when I hide everything and bring it back on. If you just look at the difference there, that all those all those subtle effects actually, they add up to make it quite a lot nicer, I think. So again, let's just run through what we've done so far. Blur layer, you duplicate the background layer, blur it, throw it on screen. Some burning, making the edges a little darker, or whichever areas seem like they should be darker, making those darker. Making a little bit of the shadows a little bit darker as well. Lightening, just dodging, like brightening up some areas. and then adding on that lens dirt, and then particles, and then all of that combined. Each one of those, each one of those things doesn't look like a huge difference on its own, but all of them together actually does make a big difference. And yeah, so let's bring this through the camera raw filter now. So Control Alt Shift E with the top layer selected. Control Alt Shift E duplicates and merges all layers together. Filter, convert for smart filters, and then camera raw filter. And let's just go through here and just see what is going to look good. I'm not exactly sure what it should be doing here, but clarity always looks good. And I'm just going to go through one by one and just if I've explained this many times before in my videos, but just in case anyone's new here, basically my strategy here is just if it looks good one way or the other, I'll do that and I'll leave it up or down. If it looks better in the middle, I'll just leave it in the middle. So I just kind of go through thing by thing, move it a little bit. If it looks worse, keep it there, or rather put it back, keep it in the middle. If it looks better, then go for it. Basically just do whatever looks good, in other words. And I like the kind of frosty look we're getting here, so I'm going to keep that up. It almost makes this look like ice instead of rocks, or like dirty ice or something. It's kind of cool. Just add sharpening. That's nice. Maybe the masking doesn't need to be that high. I like this rock texture here. It's not very realistic, but it is cool, so I like that a lot. Let's turn up the grain to like right here. Nice. Vignetting, we don't really need it because I kind of added a vignette manually by doing that dodging and burning earlier. So I'm not too worried about that. Could mess with this. I like the colors though, so I don't think this is going to make it better or worse. Maybe just increase the saturation slightly. Yeah. Cool. That looks really nice. I like that a lot. Could mess with the highlights if I want to make it really bright or blown out or anything. Or maybe bring it down to like right there so it's not blown out. It does actually look really cool having this totally blown out like this, though. I like that a lot. That's actually really cool, I'm not gonna lie. Let's do that a little bit. Maybe not that much, but just a little bit more, you know, right there. And then the highlights can just come down so it's not blowing out this background as much. I think that's good right there. And then bring the black slider down so that we're actually still getting pixels in the image that are fully black. And then let's see, shadows. I think it looks cool bringing that down slightly, so I'm going to bring it down a little bit. Not too much, but just a little bit. I wasn't planning for this to be ice, but it kind of turned out that way. I guess it kind of still looks like rock, so maybe it's fine. But yeah, this is sick though. I like where this went. That's it. Okay, I think that's good for the camera raw filter. And look how much of a difference that makes. That's just so awesome. So the first stage is like doing the basic adjustments, and the second stage is the camera raw. And then those two things together gives you like the ultimate result. That's just so sick. I like this. I like how this turned out a lot. The color on these rocks, I should have made that a little darker, but not a big deal. Let's do one last thing, a color lookup. Bring that down here and just choose any one of these that looks good. Let's just see, scroll through them and find one that's cool. This one's interesting. I could just bring that like right there. So yeah, let's put one of these on here. This one's kind of cool. Might just do that. I don't want it that intense, but I'm just trying to squeeze like the extra 5% of quality out of this image. And then maybe let's do a curves layer. Again, just trying to maximize every little thing I can. Because even though these last couple of layers don't make that big of a difference themselves, like I said, it's all those things that came before it that add up to this final thing. And so if I can add a couple extra things that boost it even more, it's you know, it's that kind of compound effect where all these little things that you don't really notice them until the very end, and then you kind of get this exponential boost in quality at the very end. Let's take that down a little. Yeah, nice. I think we're good there. I think this is done. I'm happy with this. So I don't really know what this is, but it looks sick, and I'm very, very stoked about that. So sweet. So yeah, hopefully that gives you some ideas for, I don't know, making rocks or making like surreal landscapes, or just how lighting does not need to be complicated, or it's this stuff doesn't need to be like overly complicated. You can get away with like simple shapes and just use good lighting, good environment, you know, just keep it simple. And a lot of the times that's the way to go, and you'll end up with better results if you keep it simple. If you look in the description of this video, there is a link to a course that is for the people who want to go really, really in depth into my environment creation process. If you want to see me just make things unedited, start to finish, like just 0% start all the way through everything to the very end, and you also want to get a bunch of 3D models that I use in my own work and a bunch of other stuff, access to a Discord server with everyone who's joined the course, all that stuff is just linked below in the first link. So you can go check that out if that sounds right for you. If you don't want to spend money, probably not for you, but for the guys who want to go really in depth with this shit, that link is for you. Okay. I will see you in some other video then. Cool. Thanks for watching, and yeah, bye.